This last week, I'm in a wave of ignorance, I feel. Especially when I'm by myself, I feel the sense of lack is showing up really strongly as a contraction here. And I'm trying to use all the tools that you ever gave, like just being with it and not being scared of it and investigating it. And even like yesterday, you told in a satsang that the fear is bigger than the event itself. For example, the fear of being alone. And still, I feel I try to really meet it and be present with it and to really investigate it like it's just a bodily sensation. It cannot do any harm. It cannot kill me. But it feels really uncomfortable, almost like I'm having like an anxiety attack. It really feels that I'm on the brink constantly of having a panic attack.
Yeah, but you see, what I said is often misunderstood. The goal is not to get rid of this sensation of fear. And it's not going to go away by focusing onto it or being with it, whatever you call it. What is called for is an investigation of the origin of the fear. And the origin of the fear is always, at some point, the fear of absolute disappearance. So that's the fear we have to deal with, not a contraction in the belly or in the chest. These are simply byproducts, symptoms. As long as we believe to be a separate entity, the fear is unavoidable. The fear will be there. So we can try all type of yogas, psychological maneuvers. If we don't deal with the root cause of fear, you kick it through the door, it comes back through the window.
Mm-hmm.
When I suggested to accept fully the fear, I guess it was yesterday, by understanding that which we are afraid of and the fear itself are two different phenomena. And that even if that which we are afraid of is deemed to be unacceptable, the fear itself is very acceptable, meaning we can welcome it. But we don't want to welcome it with a desire to get rid of it, because that's not welcoming. We want to welcome it with a desire of understanding its origin. Logically, rationally, intellectually, we can already easily link it to the fear of absolute disappearance. But the fear of absolute disappearance itself has its origin in the belief of being a separate entity, because it is such a separate entity which is going to disappear at some point in the future. And the disappearance of which you can only postpone, but never eliminate. That's why there is no end to suffering due to ignorance. Because we know deep inside that there is no end to this fear as long as we believe to be something limited, something separate, something impermanent. You see, I know you a little bit, but I'm not a psychotherapist. You see, I don't give band-aids for the fear. Either are more like a surgeon, but you need to accept the surgery. And it seems that the surgery is going to hurt a lot. So we don't want to go through it. And it seems that the surgery is going to deprive us from a lot of functionality in our life and make us kind of disabled. Which it won't. It won't do that, but we believe it will. And sometimes you hear teachers say, well, if you understand who you truly are, you won't have any desires any longer. And we think, well, life is going to be very boring with desire. What am I going to do without desires? You know, no playing tennis, no sex, no whatever. But that's not true. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean any not to celebrate, not to live your life. Quite the opposite. To the extent that the fear of absolute disappearance is not present, we can live our life to its fullest. So that's a kind of insurance I give you to give you the interest and the courage to deal with the central issue, which is me. To challenge what we believe to be.
But then it feels like at the core of it, out of this conversation, that I should investigate more that which is hearing these words, how you say, to ask myself, is this awareness limited to this body? Do I have evidence for that? And I feel I have done this inquiry, but maybe I'm fooling myself. I'm open to that, because otherwise, why would this fear still be there? And that answer would be like, no, there's something unlimited in me, timeless, that is not dependent on this body.
There is a rational element. In fact, it's not rational, it's pseudo-rational element or component of ignorance. And there is an irrational component to it. The pseudo-rational component of ignorance can be dealt with an investigation of the type you described. Mm-hmm. And once we have done this investigation, it gives us gradually, the courage and the incentive to finish the job, so to speak, by addressing the irrational component of ignorance, which is more on the level of feelings, the gut feeling. And let me describe how this gut feeling appears. It is, okay, Francis, I understand what you say intellectually, and it makes sense, and I agree with that. However, my gut feeling is telling me there is something fishy about this. You see? And it is this gut feeling which is telling you that there is something fishy about it that has to be investigated. And reason, logic cannot go there. You cannot eliminate an irrational fear using rational arguments. It can only be eliminated through experientially. That's a tricky point. Let me give you metaphor for this. You have this guy who is mentally borderline, right? And he believes that in his closet there is a vacuum cleaner which has teeth and ferociously bites everybody who enters the closet. He's smart, highly educated. So you tell him, first, vacuum cleaners, they have no teeth, and they have no mind, and they don't move unless they are powered. So why are you afraid of going into the closet and using the vacuum cleaner? And he tells you, yes, I understand perfectly. I'm an engineer. I know how vacuum cleaners work, and I understand that they don't bite. They are not dangerous, especially if they are not connected to the grid. But my gut feeling is telling me that there is something fishy about this reasoning, and I'm not sure. And I'm never going to go into this closet. So the only way then to go beyond this fear, in this case, what is it? It is the experiential way. And the only way is to take the guy with you, to open the door of the closet for yourself to enter the closet. And then from the closet, to tell him, come in, see, it didn't bite me. It's not going likely to bite you. But at some point, the guy may still say, yes, it doesn't bite you because it's you. But if I go into the closet because he doesn't like me, the vacuum cleaner is going to bite me. No matter what, at some point, this guy has to come to enter the closet and to touch the vacuum cleaner. And that's the only way. And after this first contact with the vacuum cleaner, it will be easier to enter the closet again and again and again. You understand what I mean? That's the
Yes.
experiential part. The experiential part there is an element to it that cannot be dealt with through reasoning alone. But reasoning can take the guy up to the closet, can take the guy, is reasoning an example, can take the guy at some point to have the courage, to do the experimental or experiential move, which is going to deal with the irrational part of his fear.
Yes, so what I take out of this at the most practical level is, instead of, for example, being with my fear and all of that stuff, to really look and ask myself, for example, can this fear kill me? Can it do any harm to me? And what is me? If I'm awareness, so like more these kind of questions. That's what you're saying,
and
right?
surrender to it. And also, distrust it, meaning don't try to eliminate it, but don't try to do as it says. In other words, you neither obey nor disobey. And sometimes not to do as it says, it seems at that moment when we try not to obey the fear, that the fear increases, grows into a panic. At some point we give up. No, it's like, you walk by a lake, and on the edge there is a little algae coming out, a little 1 foot long green algae. Seems very little, and then you start pulling and pulling and pulling, and yards and yards of green stuff come out. It's the same thing. Sometimes a little fear, when you allow it to come, behind it there is a huge tree of fear, you see? So it is this allowing that is important. That's the experiential element, to allow for the entire irrationality to come to the surface. The way the irrationality disappears is not through reasoning, it's rather through exposure to the light of consciousness.
No, I really get it, because I say, oh, I cannot die, I'm awareness, but literally this panic attack, it feels like I'm gonna die. So in that moment, I know I identify with this body, that's as clear as it gets, but it really feels like I'm gonna die. I'm not trying to be a drama queen. Like my heart starts pumping really fast, starts shaking, and it's like, fuck. And then I stop, I think.
Yeah, whereas you should prepare yourself for dying, I don't know, put on your nicest clothes, so when people find you dead, you won't be stupid, in a stupid piece of underwear with a Mickey Mouse on it or something like that, right? And so that you prepare yourself, and you tell fear, take me.
I have some for my grave already.
Oh, good.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Marius.
Hello, Francis. Good to see you. And great to be with everyone here together. One question that I have is if we hear that there's kind of like positive and negative emotions, and I would like to ask if this distinction between positive and negative emotions, or if we could compare emotions and say, okay, there's opposite, good ones and bad ones, for example. And because as I understand it, it's like the so-called positive emotions are kind of like inherent in us, and the so-called negative ones like jealousy and anxiety and so on would be signs of ignorance, or I don't know. Yeah.
In my definition of emotions, as I often say, in my experience,
Oh, I can't hear you.
Your
You're
sound
muted.
Your sound
Sorry.
just went off.
yes, I was
Okay.
saying that in my experience, there are no such things as emotions or feelings. There are only bodily sensations, thoughts and dreams, images in the mind, and external sense perceptions. That simplifies the picture, enables us to understand the true nature of what we call emotions. In emotions, that there is the word motions, movement. So emotions are a subset of all the bodily sensations. So there are changes that appear in the body as a result of either external impulses. For instance, you have a snake which is coming out of your shirt here. You will have a reaction of the body, an emotional reaction, right? All of a sudden. And so it will be a reaction to what we feel, and all of a sudden you see the head of the snake here, what you see. It can be a reaction to something you think, or even something you just imagine, you know? So emotions are bodily sensations that are the way the body reacts to other phenomena. It's a reactions to other phenomena that can happen in the world, that can happen in the body, or that can happen in the mind. The body is programmed by its DNA to survive. So in the presence of imminent danger, for instance, we become pale because the circulation of the blood is restricted on the surface of the body, because if we are cut, we are not going to bleed as much. And those of our ancestors who had this device were more likely to survive up until the age of where they can reproduce, right? And as a result, through the natural selection, we have inherited these features. In the same way, in the presence of danger, or if we are ready to aggress, because aggression is also places us in danger. So whenever we are in a mood of aggressions or defense, symptoms will appear. And these symptoms are one I described, change in the circulation, change in the way we breathe, right? Discharge of adrenaline in the body to get us ready, etc. I'm not an expert on that, but obviously we are all experts in fear, and we have all experienced that. And these mechanisms, they are normal, they are natural. We are not going to change them. If Ramana Maharshi has this snake coming out, all of a sudden he will have the same reaction. I hope he is normal, right? So just as if we have pain in the body. So let's not believe that if we understand what we truly are, all of a sudden we become a completely different body. No, that's not the case. So here are the emotions. So the emotions are a natural reaction to. Now, the distinction between negative and positive emotion is that positive emotions are just the opposite of negative emotions. They are when the body relaxes, when we feel at peace. So the opposite appears. There is no danger. The body expands. We are in harmony with the universe. We don't have to defend. So the universe is the extension of our body, right? And the breathing is open. We don't need to restrict it. All the muscles relax. So that's what. So when we move to a tension into relaxation, that's the definition of pleasure. That's very important. It's very important to understand pleasure. Pleasure is what happens when we move to a tension, to a relaxation. That's pleasure. So why? Because the state of the body in which there is no tension is our natural condition. It's a natural state of the body. The body knows its natural state. But the natural state of the body, which is, if you will, its default state, is not the permanent state of the body. A state of tension may arise. But what is important is that it gets resolved once the danger has disappeared. So I was saying that pleasure is the move from a state of tension to the natural state of the body. Why? Because as we move from a state of tension, when we're in a state of tension, there is a desire for the state without tension. You understand that, right? So
Yeah.
when we move from a state of tension to the state without tension, the desire for the state of without tension vanishes, at which point we experience the desireless state, not only in the body, but in the mind, which is the peace of our true nature. So, in effect, the pleasure, which is moving from a state of tension to a state of without tension, is some artificial way to experience our natural state. The natural way to experience of our natural state is through the understanding that we are always the peace we seek, no matter whether there is tension in the body or no tension in the body. It doesn't mean that in wisdom, we don't enjoy pleasure. And that's an important point. The same thing happens, whether I said Ramana Maharshi, if the snake appears here, right? He looks at it and he says, oh, it's no cobra. It's this one is not dangerous. Immediately he relaxes and kisses the snake, right? So the same thing with him. He will experience a tension and a relaxation. I want to say a little more about tension and pleasure, and tension and relaxation. You understand, for instance, if you're hungry, that's a state of tension. If you are thirsty, it's a state of tension. And then you enjoy the relaxation when you eat or when you drink. And then even in wisdom, we enjoy that because let's say someone tells you a joke, right? You try to understand the joke. There is a state of tension there, you know? And then the punchline arrives. You don't understand, and then 10 minutes later, I get it, and you laugh, right? Proof. At that moment, you have the pleasure of the joke. At the moment of understanding, or you are doing mathematics, same thing, you have a problem, there is a tension. And then, but the pleasure is with this relaxation. You listen to music. There is a dissonance, right? There is a dissonance, something is fishy, and then, ooh, you go back to harmony. That's the pleasure of music, is the succession of this state of tension and relaxation, tension, relaxation, because it's all the dynamism, the movement of life is made of tension and relaxation. So ultimately, there is nothing wrong with that. You understand? Movement, birth and death, all of that is tension and relaxation. Tension, that's when Jesus says in the Thomas Gospel, what is the light, what is consciousness, and he says it's a movement and a repose. It's a movement, but it's a repose in the relaxation of our true nature.
This clarifies quite a lot, I would say. Can I also ask something else?
Please, please, please.
It has to do with the role of the teacher. What do you think are like some qualities a teacher should have? What's his role, and what makes someone suitable to become so-called spiritual teacher?
You know, there are no teachers, there are only human beings. I think when we are free from ignorance, we don't have anything to defend. We are not afraid. So, in a sense, what you see is what you get, because we don't have to play a role, you know. We don't have to pretend. For instance, we don't have to pretend we know. We don't have to pretend we know that there are 7 realms or 8 levels of enlightenment, or, I mean, we can say, I fucking have no clue. You see, because why would I tell people things that I have heard from others? So we are there. We tell the truth of what we experience as human beings. That's what human beings should be like. If we don't know, we don't know. If we know a little bit, we know a little bit. So we don't have anything to defend. We don't have anything to pretend. We don't have anything who makes us different from other people, who makes us above or below other people. We are all different as human body minds, but we share all the same consciousness. So ultimately, we are the same. So there are no teachers, really. Everybody and nobody is a teacher. The teacher shows up if a question is asked, and if there is sincerity. And if there is a lack of sincerity, there is teaching again. There is teaching also there. But it's a different form of teaching. It's next time I won't be fooled. That's the conclusion. So what really teaching is sharing. As human beings, we share with each other, and it's enjoyable to share our humanity in a sense, which is our experience. Our humanity is our experience, our human experience. But the most important element of our human experience is the consciousness. And we share that in love, in understanding, in beauty, in connection, interactions. And we can only share what we are. It is much more important to share what we are than to share what we have. So everybody teaches, everybody shares. So the only thing that matters is the quality of this sharing. It is our responsibility to control the quality of our sharing. But there are no teachers. And I'm certainly not there to tell someone, oh, you teach, you don't. I've never done that. It's a free country. There are very childish things in spiritual circles that this guru had told this student to teach us. I mean, ridiculous in the face of truth. It's like, let's put it this way. Imagine this mathematics professor in college, right, or in the university, and he has these graduate students, right? And or postgrad. They all have their PhDs. And is he going to tell this guy, okay, you can teach mathematics, you cannot teach mathematics? Why? As if he was the Pope of mathematics, right? And determine who has the right to teach and who doesn't have the right to teach. I mean, the truths of mathematics are universal. That's the beauty of it. You see, once you understand the relationship between pi and the series 1 over n square. It's yours. It doesn't belong to your teacher. It never belonged to the teacher who was teaching that to you as a person, right? It belongs to all mankind and the entire universe. It's universal truth. So what is true of the mathematical truth is even more true of the truth we are talking about here. Nobody owns it. And the ones who pretend to own it, I don't know. We should ask them why. Whatever is said here, once it goes in your heart and your intelligence, it becomes yours. There is no copyright here. We cannot, that's important, we cannot have a copyright on the meaning of things. The copyrights apply only to the formulation, to the form, but not to the meaning. And that which matters here is the meaning. The meaning is our own treasure, each of us. And different people share it differently. You know, there are a lot of people who are teachers, and I'm not sure I would like to have breakfast with them. But there are a lot of people who have no pretensions. They don't see themselves as teachers or whatever. And they are my friends. And I see them as more enlightened than those teachers with whom I wouldn't have breakfast. That's the truth.
I really appreciate your answer. I'm grateful. Thanks a lot for what you're doing.
Oh. Hi, Francis. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Tommaso.
Hi. First of all, this is my first time here, so I just, before everything, thank you so much for the resources that you've shared with us, because it's been very, very helpful in guiding my reasoning these days. So thank you for that. So I have as I listen to your and other people's thoughts, I note down, of course, questions that I have, and I have one here that I'd like to ask, and it's in the same topic of fear. That seems to be the topic of these all of these questions up until now. And the question is, if we want to, or rather, it seems to me that even though I recognize that awareness cannot be hurt nor die, there are still things that there are still reasons to be afraid, in a sense. And I'm not just talking about there is a snake and you know, there is this fear that comes over me because I need to act, but also, so let me make an extreme example. And a question for you: would your life be the same, or rather, would you be, you as a body mind, would you be equally content or equally happy if you spent 10 years doing the thing you love the most, rather than, 10 years, and I'm being extreme here, but 10 years being tortured as a body mind?
Are you asking me whether the body mind is happy being tortured?
No, I'm asking whether the peace and contentment you talk about that is accessible through the knowledge of ourselves, does it equalize things to such an extent? Because if not, I feel like there are still things that we should be afraid of, because we actually do care where our life, or rather, if we don't want to talk about our life, but what the slice of life we have access to goes. Does it make sense?
Yes, but what you call afraid, I will replace it with the word cautious. There are things we have to be cautious about. There is a difference between being afraid and being cautious. And the difference is that cautious is impersonal. I am not involved in it. I am cautious in that sense. I take insurance for my house in case of a fire. But if my house burns down, it's inconvenient. But I'm not affected on the deepest level, you see? So the question is, what is the deepest level on which I can be affected? And that's a big difference. In a sense, this body mind is my house. I am the manager of it. I have to be cautious about it, right? Not to leave candle when I leave the house, on fire, or to switch off the gas or things like that. I have to be cautious. But does the fact that I am cautious imply I am afraid? No, because it's just my house, it's not me. So this difference that seems to be small is in fact huge. You can be in pain, and there is a tension, as I mentioned, towards a state of relief. You go to the dentist, or you have surgery, or you take this painkiller. But ultimately, there is a part which is never afraid. There is a part which is always at peace. And this peace is the peace that passeth, not understanding. That's a wrong translation. That passeth the mind, that passeth the phenomena. It's a peace which is beyond. So you can be, in a hospital about to have major surgery, and you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And you can be in this peace, you see, versus being in a state of complete despair and darkness. So that's the peace I'm talking about here. Now, of course, if you ask the question, do you prefer being tortured for 10 years, right? Or live 10 years playing tennis and hanging out with like-minded friends and going on ski vacation? Yes, my choice is clear.
Yes, I guess my question here was connected to the fact that there is the risk, at least for me, where the awareness, or at least the pretense of knowing where situations could lead you, which, as you said, there are situations that you would prefer over other situations, right? But the risk is that since you're aware of that, or of where some actions could lead you, that you are not peaceful the whole time, because there is this constant concern about the actions and their consequences. And so
no, because look, you first you ascertain the level of earnestness of a potential problem, right? I'm going to go for a drive after this satsang here, after this dialogue. But all kinds of things may happen. My car may break down. I may have an accident. I may run out of gas, right? Do I think about that? Does that obsess me? Does that prevent me from doing what I want to do? No, hell no. Do I think of it? I'm thinking of it just enough to answer your question. But the moment I am in the car, I'm enjoying the drive. You see what I mean? All kinds of things matter. Take another example. People who are always afraid of sickness, you know, they constantly think, is it cancer? Is it heart problem? Is it kidney disease? Is this? And they spend their time consulting with doctors, and they never play tennis or go on a ski vacation. You see what I mean? That's stupid, you know? So the rational approach is you do whatever needs to be done. You know, you go for your physical annual, you eat the right type of food the best you can. You are cautious. You are cautious. You are the manager of your body, but you are not your body. And that has deep consequences in how you live your life. And you are not obsessed. You are not obsessed by death. And why? Because you know very well that this body is going to die. Everybody knows that. You have completely accepted that. This body is going to die. You are not going to die. And that's the point. The reality, which is your reality, is not going to die. And this reality, you know it as this consciousness, which is here in these words right now, and which is the reality through which you know everything you know. And if this reality is not real, nothing is, you know, then everything is a dream. And then who cares, you see? So in both cases, there is no problem.
I guess it's that the connection between everything is a dream and then who cares that is slightly problematic for me, because yes, even though everything is a dream, there are things of value, right? So it's not completely who cares. At least I feel like I care. What happens in this dream?
Oh yes, you play the game as if it mattered, knowing that it ultimately doesn't matter.
Okay.
Well, you see, you still think that you are someone who has values and who has a free will to act or not to act in accordance with these values, right? And to a certain extent, it's better to be a human being like this than a human being who has no values, right? I am not, but there is a level beyond that. And this level beyond that is not at odds with most of the values you have, right? But then you understand that in the grand scheme of things, even these values are relative. They are just an expression on the realm of manifestation of ultimate values that are beyond that. Truth, love, beauty. Think about it. These values, where do you derive them from? Because you say in this world, things matter, there are values. What is the source of these values?
Yeah, I'm not saying there are absolute values. I'm saying
I'm asking
caring.
Yeah, what is the source of these values?
Oh, it's they just appear. I mean, I can't know for experience-wise, they just appear. They're just things that appear. If I have to think, I'm guessing they come both from my conditioning and my experiences that I've done in the world.
What is important is you seem to be pretty certain of these values. In other words, that in life, the way we act, the decisions we make, they are important. That's what you were telling me.
Well, I'm not saying they are absolutely important. I'm saying they are to me. I see the problem here, but to me, body, mind, I guess.
Yeah, but where do they come from? I mean, how do you decide? That's my point. How do you decide? Where does this decision come from? You were saying it's important. You said basically, well, I understand your lofty thing of this other realm of awareness or whatever, but practically speaking, in this life, we have to act as if it mattered. And I kind of agree with you. It does matter to some extent. But what I'm asking you now is, the decisions you make, your actions that you claim have to be in accordance with some values, where do they come from? What is the source of ethics for you?
I think it's just intuitive, meaning if we're looking at, let's say, a list of values, and I look at a couple of values and I see freedom and I see, wealth. Intuitively, if I look at them, I know that freedom is more important to me than wealth. It's not a reasoned conclusion. It's just a thing I know. So it kind of appears. Does that make sense?
Well, freedom for whom?
Yeah, that was an example, but it could have been two other.
Because the freedom to do what? Freedom freedom to oppress other people, freedom to steal, freedom to kill, freedom to lie, freedom to what?
Okay, let's say happiness and wealth, or let's swap freedom with something else. What I meant is I just know. That's the way I feel anyway. When I compare two things, I can instantly tell which one is more important to me. Now, I might reason my way back to what might have brought me there, but I don't know for sure, of course.
Well, what is more important to you, so if that's your definition of ethics.
No, of values. So
values.
What matters? Yeah, I think it is. Not on a superficial level, but but yes, it is.
Do you think it's telling the truth, for instance, is important?
I think is conducive to a good living.
But do you think that it is, if you are in occupied France in 1942 and some Gestapo guy come to your place and says, are there any Jewish family hiding in this street?
No.
Would you lie? You would lie, right?
Yeah, because in my view, the solution of least violence is the preferred one. So in a situation where I would be willing to use physical force instead, then lying is justified. At least that's my view. Oh, I can't hear you.
I think you can hear me now.
Yeah, I can.
Yes. Do you think that there is a way? Do you think that is it windy where you are?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, it's very. Oh no, my phone is shutting down.
It's okay. It's okay. Do you think that, for instance, because you said, well, there are kind of two levels. One, what you say, which is about the absolute truth. And then there is this level of practicality of my actions. And the way you present it is as if these two levels were kind of independent. Are you following me? You broke up.
His last words were that his phone was shutting down.
Okay, okay. So we go to Alex then. Oh, sorry, it was Anna, but Anna, you come after that. Uh-oh.
Hi.
Yes, hi, Alec.
How are you? Nice to see you and hear you guys. Okay, question. I think one day you talked about not, in yoga exercise or whatever, not to grab objects, but to let them come to you. And I was probably playing about this idea the other day, not willingly, but just happened. I was meditating or something and it came. And I suddenly realized that these days I feel way less expanded, way more dense, contracted than usually. I then realized, that's like when I go to sleep or early morning, I don't enjoy as much as I used to being, before you grab your mind and your bodysuit and you go for the day. And so I was trying to think about why and how and stuff. I had a conversation with a good friend recently, and I had this idea about kind of spiritual pride, you know. I remember being in Temecula, you know, and running around helping for coffee or whatever needs to be done. And I guess maybe with my new job, this idea of trying to be a professional helper, you know, this stupid stuff that's, I know some stuff, so this stuff should be helpful, so let's do it. And all this stupid thing that makes you become someone who wants to be something. And so you're way less helpful than anything. But then also during nights, you are dreaming about these kids and what they told you and how to help and all this mess, which should just, you know, go quietly. And so, yeah, this idea of the guy trying to be, you know, rock-like, mountain-like, so that people can climb and explore and everything. And at the end, you're more like a gravel in the shoe, you know, this thing that annoys everything, and you just want to throw it away. And so I see that, and yet it feels, you know, I'm reminded of you saying this annoying sentence like, we enjoy ignorance, you know. And so I say, yeah, maybe somehow, even though I try to be honest, and I say, no, I want the truth and the full enchilada and nothing else. Somehow these days, I must be enjoying this painful situation of feeling embodied and worrying about human beings and this whole thing. But it feels so useless, you know. I feel so less happy and tense and everything. So I don't know. I don't know how to take care of that, or if I should just enjoy the show. I don't know. You know, I hear myself saying, oh, let's wait until Francis comes to Europe and then it will, all this, you know, time and space. And okay, I'm using all these things that I know are stupid, you know, because I am what I am right here, right now. So it is just, so I must be enjoying the game. I don't know.
Sometimes we do too much. Sometimes I see you as you know, one day with my teacher, we were having dinner together and there was a pastry left over from lunch, and it had been a very delicious tarte aux pommes, very, like you don't do them any longer, right? Homemade with real organic apple, real butter, real whatever, right? And there was kind of half of the tart remaining, and I loved it. And so he was there to cut it. I was wondering how he would cut it. He cut it right down the middle, you know, because he liked it to, right by the millimeter, two absolutely equal parts. You know? And the lesson is in your life, there are two equal parts, the world, other people, but there is also you. And you are, in a sense, to me, you look a little too Christian, too much like a monk, too much like, and I, believe me, I understand sacrifice and I really honor it. But if the price to pay is your own joy of life, your own freedom, then you have nothing to give. You understand that? Then you will give only lip service or mechanical, you will fulfill mechanical duties, you see, and then the spirit gets lost. So there should be room for others in your life, but also for yourself. So you have to see the problem you're having now. Am I not giving enough to myself, to this body mind? You know, you have to connect with your heart's desire.
Yeah. I know I'm not doing it.
It's not necessarily being an egoist. You see what I mean? It's more subtle than that.
Yeah, I mean, deeply, truth is I know it. And yet that's why when you say Christian or, you know, this kind of messy, complex, whatever, I think, oh yeah, that's the guy, yeah. I know what my heart keeps telling me. And still I pretend not to hear because later, because now he's helping me, he's asking me for something and I'll go for it.
Because sometimes, you know, there is a subtle mechanism in us. It is this kind of Christian thing that, not Christian in the sense of the teaching of Jesus, no, but something else, that this mercantile thing that I have to give a lot now to receive more later. And that's not the way it works. The way it works is more to express gratitude for what we receive now and to stay in this gratitude, to stay in this connection in which there is room for everyone and there is room also for Alec.
And my cello.
Alec has to be happy, to make people happy around him. And get rid of the things that if I suffer more, if I meditate 20 hours a day and give me myself only 4 hours of sleep. You know, there is this Zen story. The guy said, what if I meditate 8 hours a day? How long is going to take for me to get the Satori? And the teacher says, 5 years. And then the guy says, what if I meditate 16 hours a day? And the teacher says, 10 years. Okay? So that's the general idea here, right? There is no need. You cannot buy God. You cannot buy love through sacrifice. You can only accept what God gives you, and you can only do what your heart is telling you to do. Your heart and your intelligence. So there is no enlightenment to seek through any type of practices or sacrifice, or we cannot go towards enlightenment. We can only act from it.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
It's good to see you, Oleg.
Yes.
Hannah. Go ahead.
Yeah, yesterday I felt a little bit incomplete when I was asking you my second question. It was related to dealing with our own intensity in some challenging situations. And I know that partially is because through reading your book, I feel like I am putting all these pieces like a puzzle. And sometimes it's hard to describe everything I am seeing at once, and I didn't have the ability to express myself fully. Plus, there were two words that I felt that it could be misinterpreted. One was God, and the other one was warrior. And it has given me a little bit of a peace facing whatever moment I am in. Then in one of the passages of your book, it says that we shouldn't insist that God should show up in a certain moment in a way that we expected, in a form that we expected. He said, because he's conditioned by our past experiences, you know, like seeing trumpets and angels, etc. He said, sometimes God wants to appear as a warrior. And when I heard the word warrior and kind of reading the book that I am reading, the Perfume of Silence, there were a few things that really touched me, that sometimes you say, I don't know, this may be incorrect. It says that it's not as much as to the duration, but more about the intensity and the spontaneity that takes us right to the absolute. And then it also described, and for me, it was not only about being meditating, but the state of abiding, that said, is not passive, is not active because there is not a doer and there is no goal to be reached. But said it's also not passive because there is an active sense that is not devoid of higher activity and higher reasoning. So sometimes when I meet my own challenges, I feel, you know, there is certain intensity that has to come to the moment. Even there is a passivity that I am not a doer, and there is not an I figure. And at the same time, there is a focus in what is happening, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Yes. And it helped me enormously, this, that it was so beautiful, that said, don't try to make them yield. When you have tension, it says, don't try to make it yield. If they want to yield, that's fine. But said, basically says, don't push it. Don't make your happiness a hostage of the yielding. Again, if I feel sometimes judging myself, I should be able to transform this and go beyond this silly stuff or whatever. But said, don't feel that you have to have an extraordinary experience. It says it is the ordinary experience that is in itself extraordinary. But what is most beautiful is that basically says it's only by the judgment that we place in the moment that it should be different that we block ourselves from seeing the extraordinarily experience that is happening in the moment. So that I felt, okay, you know, it is what it is right now, and this is what is given to me, or I supposed to experience. And I did like a little bit the word warrior, again, not in a, hey, there I go, you know, I am the Advaita warrior, whatever, but more in the sense that there is a focus there is a form of, okay, I'm not going to go into the ego and I, conquer the situation, but there is certain focus that I try to step into, or I know step into is not the right word, because you often say there is no place to step because we are there already. And at the same time, when you describe in the book, you said it's active in the sense that it's not devoid of higher activity, higher resonance, and higher feeling. It comes from the source and it goes to the source. Yes, so I guess that leaves me more of a peace of mind of accepting, hey, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be.
Yes, but Anna, this welcoming of the situation includes the situation, the context in the world, but also within you.
Yes.
You understand that? So it's for instance, you can have the still small voice telling you inside, okay, don't do this, don't do that. And that has to be taken into consideration, right?
The practical aspect, yes.
Not only the practical aspect, but your own thoughts and your own take on the situation.
Yes.
And then you have to, out of this complete contemplation of both sides, if you will, of the situation in the world and your reaction, your take, to determine what would be the impersonal attitude, right?
Yes.
And that's the best you can do. And because it is the best you can do, it is the absolute best.
Yes. And high reasoning in this, because I haven't really read too much about your description of high reasoning. Does high reasoning really means embracing the thoughts that are happening, or actually the act of thinking on a higher form?
I have a confession to make. I never read this book in its totality.
I keep referring to the book. I almost feel embarrassed.
It was written by Rupert.
I know.
As from transcripts of dialogues that were given in Canada somewhere. But I agree. I agree with whatever Rupert has written.
I'm almost finished, by the way.
Going back to higher reasoning, what does higher reasoning means? It's a word which is taken from Atmananda, Krishna Menon. And let's look first at what reasoning means. Reasoning means the use of logic, but based upon true facts, true statements, we would say, true facts. True facts meaning facts that are experientially verified. Now, the facts that are experientially verified are of two kinds: phenomenal and non-phenomenal. So, reasoning, ordinary reasoning, applies to phenomenal facts, verified, the use of logic, right? That would be lower reason. And higher reasoning is the use of logic as it applies to the noumenal experience. So it's experiential, but it applies to the noumenal experience. That would be higher reasoning. And in the same way, and that's not Krishna Menon's thing, but that's my extension of higher reasoning into higher sensing and higher perceiving. And what it means, higher sensing or higher perceiving, means in this case a way to perceive, let's say, higher sensing, a way to perceive the world and the body, which is in line or which is consistent with consciousness being universal, without separation. So that would be higher sensing and higher perceiving. And in fact, they both kind of blend together. It's another way to describe higher sensing, higher perceiving is to perceive the world and the human body as one and as being my body as consciousness. It's a way to perceive and the world through the external senses and the body through the inner tactile sense, if you will, as being one single reality.
So basically, you were addressing to the fact that before that, even there is this acceptance, I have to deal with whatever is happening, and that would be a combination of bringing facts and logic to what is happening in a way with the word objective as I can, but then bringing the values of the consciousness that I am absolutely.
Definitely, but also when there is higher sensing and higher perceiving, it injects into the context more information, if you will. You understand that? In other words, your feelings,
Yes.
by feelings, I mean, whatever is experienced as a result of this absence of separation
Permeates, no? Yes.
may affect what you do, your decision. So we have to allow also for these apparently irrational elements to be part of the decision-making process. In other words, we have to try in our decision-making process not to trust intelligence only, but to try to reconcile in truth, love, and beauty. You see, that's the idea. And if it seems that they are at odds, we need to revisit up until we reconcile everything.
That's very helpful. Thank you. It's very helpful. I was a little bit. No?
Yes, Roy, hi.
Hey, how are you, Francis? I wanted to say first thank you because you really helped me yesterday. Even though my situation is a little bit difficult, but I understand that, it doesn't matter if I complain, it's not going to help the situation. So I did want to ask you, though, to further my understanding, when you do realize your true nature, does something physical wake up in your body?
Well, yes, but sometimes a glimpse of our true nature seems not to bring about major changes in the body right off the bat, so to speak. Sometimes ignorance, ignorance gets killed sometimes in a crash, right? All of a sudden. But sometimes you have a virus and it's only a few days or years later then you discover, oops, I'm about to die. So that's glimpses are of different kinds, and Yes, that's all I can say.
The other thing I wanted to ask is that it's something that happens in an instant, right? It's not something that, it felt like I was getting somewhere. It felt like I was getting to some point, but you know, I just kind of realized that everything just happened at once.
Yeah, from the, you see, there is some, our reality is beyond the mind. The mind is too small. And so the mind has no access to its reality. Its reality has access to the mind, but the mind has not access to its reality. So the experience of this reality can be done only by this reality itself, not by the mind. The mind experiences the world, the body, and the thoughts. In fact, it is the reality of the mind that experiences through the mind the body, the world, and the thoughts. But the mind has no access to its reality. So its reality experiences itself, but the mind is the child of time. Perceptions evolve constantly. So the mind has no access to the timeless presence in which it appears. So for the mind, this moment of this glimpse is a mystery because the mind was not invited. The mind was like the cab that took you to the party, but the cab driver is not invited inside the party.
That's what it felt like. At first, it was like I was having these moments where I didn't know what happened. It was just a collapse of everything, I suppose. And I would be eating something. It was normally when I guess I just got a little bit distracted. If I was cooking or eating something or cleaning, I would just notice that my entire world shifted. And then what was happening was that I was switching from the mind and awareness, because eventually these perspective switches stopped at a certain point.
The way it works is we somehow mysteriously become interested in this. And it's like catching a virus that we can never get rid of. It's final. It's too late.
But what I realized is this happened to me before, but you know, many years ago, like 2 or 3 years before that, I remember something similar happened, but my experience just closed. Why was that? Was it because I just wasn't interested enough in the experience, or?
When they say in India is when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And the teacher is not necessarily the physical teacher, right? It's not the teacher.
You was my teacher.
Can be an event that happens in your life or whatever. So it's a question of being ready, and then you get yeah.
I understand now that, you know, some people, they never make it this far. Why? Because why does this happen? What triggers it? Because I realize that it's an act of grace, but I didn't do, I mean, I will be honest, I was putting a lot of effort into my life. I had no spiritual practice. I almost kind of like shut myself off from this.
Welcome to the club. It's okay, you know.
It is. It's just I want to know, you know, I want to understand, you know, because what I'm going through now is, to be honest, is like hell. I mean, I understand that in a few years everything will be okay, but it's just very odd. It's hard to. It's not good. It's not good for life, you know. It's not good for having a job and all this.
That there is nobody to whom it happens.
Yeah.
There is nobody to whom it is happening. Because the glimpse is telling you there is nobody. There is not a separate person out there. That's a message.
And, you know, even now, it's still, I know that it's eroding this away, but, you know, yes, when we talked yesterday.
You can understand that, yes. The Meister Eckhart, in one of his sermons, he says, when God is doing its work in us, it's better that we are not aware of it. And the metaphor, the image I use is this. If there is a problem with a leak in your faucet and on your sink, and you call the plumber, and the plumber is there fixing your faucet, and you are there next to the plumber, and you tell the plumber, oh, what kind of soldering agent are you using? What kind of thread? Or are you using Teflon or something else for the? And you ask all these questions. The plumber is going to say, you know, shut up.
Punch you in the head, yeah.
Or alternatively, he's going to charge you double for his time. You know, so it's better if you tell the plumber, okay, welcome, here is the sink, take care of my business, and you leave the plumber alone. So it's the same, God is a plumber. Let God do the work and enjoy life.
Yeah, I realize that. Yeah. It's, well, the enjoying life is a bit difficult, but as much as I can, I will, you know, one thing is, you know, I was just walking around today, I just feel that the body is getting more sensitive over time. It's getting more crazy. It's, I feel that okay, I did want to ask you though, why is there no information about this? Because when it happened, you know, you guys will talk about realizing your true nature, but what comes after, there's no resources, there's nothing. Is it just because it's not a teaching? I mean, we have enough time in humanity for this to be written down somewhere, but it was not.
Because it is for you to sort it out.
Yeah, I kind of realized that, yeah. But I realize, you know, I'm like the most stubborn person in the world. So for me to come here and to come to Rupert and to ask for help was really difficult for me. But I realized that I couldn't go through this on my own. It was just too much. And I also did want to ask about the Kundalini. Can you, is that like, is it really something that wakes up in your body? Because that was what I was asking at first, but, or is it just that you become aware of what's going on and now your body can process these emotions that you've held in your body for many years?
Yeah. Well, there might be an event taking place in the body as a result. My take on this is it's God's work. Let it happen.
Yeah, I'm kind of realizing that.
Don't try to help God. And especially avoid anything, avoid anything that you have control over. Sometimes people, they have movements in the body appearing. And the mistake is to go with that, and to believe that it is spontaneous. But if it is repetitive, you are the accomplice of it, and it doesn't achieve anything. You can believe it's God, well, you can believe it's Kundalini, you can believe whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it's a waste of energy to become the accomplice of that. If you can control it, don't let it happen. If something happens in your body which is absolutely out of your control, then you have no choice, but it's going to happen. That's God's work. Sometimes it happens in your sleep, etc. Don't pay attention to that, because it's always this question, is my glimpse a true glimpse? Am I on the right path? And to which there is nobody on the right path. If you have this kind of question, it seems it means that you just at that moment go back into the belief of being this separate person who is progressing on the path. And that's a mistake right there. You are already this beautiful, extraordinary, universal consciousness. Absolutely.
Let me say something though. Yesterday you told me there is no expansion, and today you told somebody that the body is expanding. So is there expansion? Is there a deepening? Or is it just that, well, the other thing is awareness is also expanding. So, you know, you could say it's static, but it's also changing at the same time? Because by definition, if it's infinite, it's expanding.
No, there are two different things. I was mentioning what happens when we are under the pressure of fear and contraction. And then when this contraction relaxes.
Right.
So, in a sense, when the contraction relaxes, it feels like the human body kind of dissolves into the space, right? The difference is that in ignorance, we believe to be this thing that is contracted, that expands to a certain level, and that contracts again. We believe to be this thing here. Whereas in knowledge, we are the space within which these contracting and expanding things appear. This dynamism appears in it, but we are the space. That's the difference. And to the extent that we are the space, this contraction and expansion processes, they are just the way the Tao flows. They are just the way life. Because this thing here is in harmony with everything out there that moves.
Okay, that clears up a lot. I just want to say thank you because
it takes two to tango, but really to tango well, the two have to be one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, I'm going to stop here. Sorry for Rudy, Jay, Larry, Tommaso, and Easy, and Kanchi. We do that next week. Sorry about that. Bye.
Thank you, Francis.
Have a fun drive.